Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, I am Manya from Extramarks, your facilitator for this session. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to our prestigious webinar series, Extramarks Elevate. Extramarks Elevate is a thought leadership series aimed at serving as a platform for educators, academicians, technocrats, young achievers, and other stakeholders to share their experiences and views on developments and trends in the field of education and technology. We at Extramarks are proud of our 15 years journey. With the support of our 15,000 plus global schools, we have revolutionized education, customizing learning solutions for 21st century learners through cutting edge technology. This is the 11th episode, and we are thrilled to have an incredible panel of experts to delve into the topic of student-centric classrooms, cultivating personalized learning with proven practices and tools. I would take a moment to introduce all my panelists, starting with Ms. Anita Bijesh. Mrs. Anita Bijesh, a distinguished educator and a dynamic leader, consistently elevates education standards. Recognized as the best principal in 2022, as a CBSE master trainer and British Council School ambassador, she is dedicated to enhancing teacher competencies and creating vibrant learning spaces for the 21st century learners. We welcome you, ma'am. Next, we have Ms. Ayushi Sharma, Director of Arvachin International School, Delhi. She is an experienced education management leader, skilled in leadership and business strategy. She's a multi-award winner in education, demonstrating a proven history of success in the education field. We welcome you, ma'am. Next, we have Mr. Vardhan Kabra, Head of School at Fountainhead, Gujarat, is a distinguished educational leader with expertise in IB philosophy, curriculum development, and effective administrative systems. Renowned for his visionary project, the Maverick Learning Center, and acclaimed book, Reimagining Indian Education, which is our also slogan for Elevate. He actively contributes to educational reforms and serves as the FICCI Arise Gujarat State Chair. We welcome you, sir. We are honored to have you. Next, we have Mr. Shiva Prakasam Raman, Director of EHKN Group of Institutions, leads a 38-year-old institution with 3,000 plus school students in Tamil Nadu. With 22 years in education, he serves as the Associate Director of Worldwide Education, specializing in Cambridge exam preparation and overseas career guidance across 18 countries. We welcome you, sir. Next, we have Dr. Manisha Sahni, Director Principal, Delhi World Public School, a stellar 17-year career. She has got special recommendation and recognition in Education Innovation Summit. We welcome you, ma'am. We also have Ms. Poonam Singh Jamwal, our Director of Extramarks Education. She brings more than 20 years of diverse marketing, customer, brand, education technology, and general management experience. She has always believed in inclusive, intuitive, and holistic tech-enabled learning solutions. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Manya, and welcome to everybody. Looking forward to the discussion.
So now let's start with the discussion. Let's explore the evolution of education from a traditional one-size-fits-all approach to student-centric classroom. I would like to start from Anita, ma'am. How have you seen the traditional one-size-fits-all approach evolve into a student-centric classroom in your school?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I mean, it's an honor to be, at this forum with such distinguished educationists. So thank you very much, Extramarks, for having me here. Yes, coming to your question, I think the shift from, the traditional one-size-fits-all classrooms to what we call personalized learning or student-centric classrooms, it has come because of this recognition that today we have children who are, they have diverse learning styles. So if you look at the diversity of our learner pool, it's huge. And that is why there has been this recognition of individualized needs. When we talk about catering to 21st century learners, we know that we're today focusing on not just one aspect, of their persona. When you're talking about learning, the way children actually absorb information is very, very different. And this recognition of fostering a more inclusive and effective educational environment is what today's schools are looking at. And today in the country, everyone has moved to a student-centric classroom. The need to have moved to a student-centric classroom is just this.
Right. Very rightly said, ma'am. Vardhan sir, do you have anything to add here, being the head of an IB school? What do you think about a personalized student-centric classroom?
I think by definition, or rather, I mean, the way IB is structured, it is a very student-centric curriculum. It is focused on the students' learning outcomes through skill development and conceptual understanding rather than rote memorization of content, which unfortunately is still plagues some in much of our education system. Things are improving significantly, I think, post the NEP and now the NCF that has come out, but it's still a long way to go in terms of implementation. So I think by definition, the IB is student-centered because it looks at how students actually learn, and students learn through inquiry, through understanding the world around them. And one of the elements, I think, that and of course it is a question about economic fitment, but one of the things that most IB schools have is smaller class sizes, which automatically allows for much better personalized learning, differentiation within the classrooms. When you go to an IB classroom, you would often see students seated in small groups doing different things within the same classroom. So those are things which are inbuilt into the IB system, and I'll talk about more things as we go forward.
Sure, sir. Priya ma'am, can you tell how do you strike a balance between this personalized learning that Anita ma'am and Vardhan sir has just told, and how do you ensure that students meet the curriculum standards as well and the learning objectives that CBSE has set, that the system has set?
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
In order to go for this approach, one has to understand that a facilitator must first know the child. So the KYC is the first and the foremost thing. You should know your child. Then the style of learning. Then the ecosystem of your classroom. Then you have to build a pyramid, like which child falls in the cognitive part, or the which child goes for the psychomotor. There are children who are word smart, there are children who are music smart, there are children who are nature smart. Then only you can strike the balance, and then only you can, accelerate this approach. So know your child, understand the dynamic of your class, understand the ecosystem, understand the learning style of your children, and then strike the balance with this approach.
Very, very well said, right. Knowing the child is very important. KYC,
Yes,
as ma'am mentioned.
KYC.
Yes.
You know why? It is not about only the marks, it's about making the mark. You have to understand one thing, that if your child is entering in the classroom with a question mark, he or she should not go out with a full stop. And that is, the onus is on us. We are the facilitators, we are the coach, we are the mentors. So we have to take care of this. Thank you, everyone.
Right. As ma'am said, it's about making the mark and not just about marks. And when marks comes, I get reminded of assessments. Raman sir, if you can just highlight discuss the role of assessment in a student-centric classroom and how it differs from the traditional assessment methods.
Well, thank you very much for. It's a privilege to be part of this eminent panel, and we are a 38-year-old institution here based in the road, and we have about 3,000 students. So really, it's an honor to be part of this panel to share my insights. Anyway, see, for us, traditional assessment has been quite important because it's been a challenge to balance between personalized learning and meeting curriculum standards. The role of assessment for student-centric differs significantly from traditional assessments. See, we are, for example, you look at our state board syllabus, we are focused on content mastery, emphasis on the acquisition of content knowledge and information. Typically, assess students on the ability to recall and memorize, and that's how they look at the marking system. See, metrics, we need to reproduce the answers because most institutions we are focused on result oriented. So that is why we have a dilemma between personalized learning and traditional methods of assessment. So for metric schools, for example, we are very focused on reproducing answers because that's how the marking system works. In fact, we send our papers, evaluations, everything to other schools to find out, to check the veracity of the results also. And if you look at CBSE, there are question banks, there are patterns how to score marks. Because you see CBSE, there are keywords, and the marking systems, and we have something called the CC, the comprehensive evaluation system. So it is like a holistic thing that judges your scholastic subjects and your co-scholastic subjects like performing arts and music and stuff like that. So we are not in a system where, like, we have the US application standards that your we see your 10th standard, we see your 12th standard, you have your letter of recommendation, you have a statement of purpose, and you look at your other activities to judge, to get to a particular college. For example, do you do any voluntary activities? Do you have any sporting, competitions, certificates, things like that? So generally, you look at the metric board that we follow. Students want marks in physics, chemistry, and maths. They want to join a good engineering college. So our traditional methods are the one assessment that are really taking over. You divide the physics mark by 2 out of 100, chemistry out of 2, and maths out of 200. What is your score? You get into a good college. So parents are very much focused on result-based orientation, stuff like that. So that is how it works today. Of course, when you talk about student-centric, we are kind of, when you talk, see, for the middle school, we try to implement these kind of things. Like, for example, flipped learning. We do this, for example, students take out the lesson outside the classroom. They have a discussion outside. And pre-recorded videos, teachers make some effort. They are given some access to some resources like podcasts and internet resources. And the discussion, all the discussion goes outside. And when they come back to the classroom, they have a comprehensive discussion inside. There's a discussion, there's an evaluation, there's an analysis. They elicit answers, as one of the members was saying, that there are small groups formed. And that is really really productive, and student enjoys this kind of class-centric or student-centric learning process. We do the Cambridge exams in that way. That's the activity-based learning. It really works. So children enjoy these things. So we are always stuck between the traditional method of giving the results, as children also should enjoy the process of learning. And student-centric is a very good process because student is the center of this one. And we are kind of like, if you take about, we learned all this during the Cambridge exam. We do the young learners English, the starters, most, flyers for the children, and we have the upper class. We have the KET and PET exams, which which judges your listening, speaking, reading, the LSRW, and it's all activity based. Cambridge is fully, the syllabus is based on activity based and student centric, and it works out really very well. And the teacher talk time, the TTT, is very less. Out of a 1 hour or a 45-minute session, maybe even 10 minutes the teacher talks will be a big thing, but the learning outcome is really wonderful. So assessments are traditional. Yes, we are kind of result focused. Definitely personalized learning sense is it's very good. Even applying to real world applications, we don't have. You look at the metric board, also does not have. We have a rote system. You have to memorize something and reproduce on the paper. There is no logical process of critical thinking. See, after 12th standard, there are about 80 plus entrance exam children prepare, and none of the questions or the pattern of assessment comes or we study over here. It's all MCQ, multiple choice questions. You need logical reasoning, you need critical thinking, you need numerical ability. These things don't exist here. So we have to see that we teach these kind of student-centric things from the side and keep the traditional assessments from the center. That's how it works. So end of the day, parents are going to ask, what is my mark? What is my kid's mark? So this is a balance between both. And we are kind of, it's challenging, but yes, to a certain level, we are doing it. Because if you look at, generally, just to complete my time, like, if you look at something called the PISA ranking, like the performance or the program for international student assessment, which is part of the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, because I work mostly in Southeast Asia. You look at all the Asian countries, you look at Singapore, you look at Japan, you look at South Korea, they are doing wonderfully well in the PISA ranking. That is the world standards in terms of they see reading and writing, they look at your arithmetic abilities, they're doing wonderfully well. And they have a very rigorous system towards marks. And I personally know these people because you look at Singapore, it's only 30 kilometers radius, but they have 1,000 tuition centers. So the traditional systems is what mostly the Asian crowd follows, that I want marks. Say, we look at South Korea, for example, there's some, like how we say the IIT, there's something called the SKY. They have seen something called the Seoul National University, and K for Korea, Advanced of Science and Technology, and Y is Yonsei. And children break the head, and there are even 9 schools for it. What I'm saying is mostly the Asian crowd is most in the traditional system. Yes, we are inculcating, we are trying to, sideways into kind of latest concept like flipped learning and project-based learning, just also kind of, I think, futuristic concepts, but kind of result oriented. So we are stuck between both. I think both assessments are quite productive. So that's how I would see it. So more or less, we are like metric is like a chalk and talk, and CBC is like a grill and drill method. So we are stuck between this. But as 20 years, I feel that you keep children happy, the learning outcome is much better. So bringing the horse to the water, you make the horse thirsty, he can go. So we are stuck between satisfying parents and children.
I like the term thrill and drill method. Thrill and drill is so interesting. But I think, Manya, that a very interesting convergence of all curriculums is happening in the last 2 years since COVID. There is a huge convergence, and there is also a kind of awakening. Because if you really see every teacher, even the teacher who's putting a child through rigor for marks, her aspiration is excellence of the child. If you really step back and see, it is not just the marks. She's looking at excellence, and finally that he should find a future path. So if you philosophically look at the change that is happening about uniqueness of the child, it has always been an educationist aspiration. And then in that aspiration, we encounter volume. Okay, lots of people and lots of students need to be brought to a point of highest of their potential, right? And in a country like India, that is when the volume is way, way higher, you have to find a middle path of taking them to that excellence. So what I felt was that though the bane of the whole evolution that we've had is that rote learning that all of us talk about. That will go away if we bring engagement at a classroom level. Yet, leverage technology to a great extent for understanding the concepts. You can introduce application-based learning from class 1 to 12 without compromising this whole work towards or rigor towards the marks. Because what is marks actually? That a child should be able to understand a concept and crack a concept. And in the foundational years, if he's understood the concept, why wouldn't he crack the concept? And then the teacher teaches him the rigor of time management and how to, prioritize the answers. Those are strategies for taking a test. But your knowledge comprehension journey is similar, whichever the curriculum that is. So what I felt is I love the thrill and the drill part of it. The drill is a nature of Asians. Like we like rigor, we are bred in rigor, but does not mean that we do not want to have deep comprehension of concepts. So therefore, I think with very open heart, we need to leverage technology. Every school needs to have a philosophy that what it wants to do. Suppose you want to introduce the good values of Cambridge curriculum or IB curriculum, you can be in CBSE and you can design that curriculum accordingly. Yet, if you reduce the talk time of teacher using technology that the child self-learns as a conceptual level and engages in the classroom level, you can manage volume, you can have conceptual application in the classroom and have project-based learning also, all the three. And because technology also allows you assessments and varied assessment and a mix of assessment, which otherwise was a very physical activity for the teacher in the classroom to give notes and question, and those fat books we used to take for filling our notebooks, all that transitions into technology. We optimize time and collective intelligence. So my inclusive word is, we need to be very open to what technology is. So we need to have a curriculum and say, okay, they need to know everything that is prescribed. So can I reduce the time of 100% time given to that understanding to 25% leveraging technology, and then make the learning process in the 75% time joyful? I need to reach a particular target. Can I use multiple assessment at right intervals and to be able to map the trends of it? But we need to look at it holistically and not piecemeal. So all the points Sir said are so real, because moment we finish this discussion, we all are going to go back to our seat and face the parents and try giving results. Right. And that's reality. But we also need to step back and have a bird's eye view of where we are headed, and why should we not be empowered? We use, like you said, they use podcasts, they use this, still her time is going there. So can we take a backbone of a solution and then do everything else given to her as per her choice and as per her class and as per uniqueness of a child? So we have to transition from textbook to an online singular backbone solution to fulfill the requirements of our boards, and then move to take over the personalization of the child, is my thought. And that's the struggle I have seen in the last decade and a half. But COVID has woken all of us and brought us on the same table for conversations, right? And all of us are learning so much from each other that practically tomorrow morning, what am I going to implement? So that's why I would love to hear what Manisha ma'am also would like to say on the topic.
Thank you, Poonam ma'am. And thank you, Manya, for inviting us, and Extramarks for inviting us into this panel today. It's been lovely to hear from all of you. I believe the topic of today's discussion is personalized learning, right? And my first foray with the term personalized learning actually came from a book by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know how many of you have read it. It talked about an institute, KIPS organization of New York. Have you heard of it? Okay, so this particular organization takes personalized learning to a very higher level. What they do is they give children time to pace their learning according to their understanding, and they are allowed to sit in the room and explore a concept till they get it. So it's not time bound. You pick and choose whatever you want to do. It's all about giving the student a sense of agency regarding their learning. Okay, this comes, after this, I was thinking about it, and I realized that what we have missing in our system is the students don't have a choice. They have no choice over the curriculum. They have no choice on their learning path. They have no choice of anything that is to do with our education system. Okay, so obviously they have no agency. Obviously they have no voice. So here again, I was thinking about it, and I realized that supposing I had a group of people around me and I told them, say a simple command, like I just picked one of them and I said, bring me a ladder. Okay. So now what is this person going to do? This person will go look for a ladder, come back and say there was no ladder there. Okay. But I have the same group of people and I tell them, which one of you is going to get me a ladder? Right? So one of them will volunteer and say, okay, I will get you a ladder. Now what's going to happen? The person is going to go there, not find the ladder. But since that person has said, I will get the ladder, will look around, find the next possible solution and come back and say, okay, here is the ladder I promised you. Correct? So this is what agency is about, and this is what choice is about. And when we are talking about personalized learning, the only drawback in our system is that we don't have time. We are strapped of time. We do not know. We would love to give the children the choice. We would love to give the children encouragement to go ahead and plan their personalized learning, but we don't get to do it because we don't have the time. We are bound by a strict curriculum, a syllabus about how to get things done. It has to be done in a one particular year, which is filled with holidays, and we barely get enough days for teaching and learning. So what do we do about it? How do we convert personalized learning and make it into something which gives student much more facility and agency over their own learning path? What we need to do is we need to reformat the way we are thinking. The problem with personalized learning is not because the students are not up for it. It is because we as educators don't think in those terms, because we were not brought up in those systems. We didn't have a choice. So as a result, we don't know how to deliver that choice onto students. So what do? We need to start thinking like the children these days. We don't have the time. When you're talking about assessments, we cannot do the conventional assessments anymore. I would rather tell my kid, okay, prepare a vlog, prepare a podcast, prepare a Facebook profile. Maybe if I'm talking about the Holocaust, or I'm talking about Hitler and the Nazis, I would probably tell them, okay, fine, why don't you create a podcast about it? Why don't you host a series about it? And that is going to personalize the learning from them, because that they understand. They know how they can sensationalize it and make it into something more interesting and palatable for this generation. They would get that. But then again, are we geared up for that kind of a system? We've adopted AI, we've adopted technology, and half of our teachers still struggle with it. Are we open to a new way of thinking? Are we open to a new mindset? That kind of staff, do we have that kind of imagination, or do we have those kind of teachers who have the pulse of the children in their hand and say, okay, fine, I understand this kid and I can tailor make my lesson to suit this particular child? Because it is about tailor making education to fit the different needs of different learners. So how do you do that? I have a child, like ma'am said, this musical inclination of a child. Yes, there is a child who is musically inclined, but am I musically inclined? Do I understand that child? Will I be able to tailor make my plan to suit that particular child's need? So here we need to have a deeper thought, because in the end, we do not need knowledge regurgitators. What we need is thought leaders. And if we have to create thought leaders, we have to tailor make our education into something very different than what it is today. That flexibility that we are supposing or wanting our system to have, we don't really have it, and we've not really inbuilt it into our system, no matter what we say about curriculums.
Can we not introduce that in the early years?
Yes.
I very strongly feel our main purpose in whatever you're saying is the first step is to make time.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. But ma'am, early years, there's no point in giving choice. Early years, you have to give direction.
See, in early years, we are giving pathways to learning.
Correct.
But one is to give pathway to learning. When I give my child pathway to learning, I am the leader and he's following me in the pathways. Can I step behind him and walk behind him, save him from danger and find new pathways? It is for a very, very long, I did my post-graduation in early years.
Mm-hmm.
And that time I had this was 10-15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And as they had written, and they were very nice, in theory, we already have this exploration. But when it comes to practice, we have never applied it. If we create new pathways of learning, you will find a uniqueness of a child by the time he's in grade 2, 3. But because we lead the way to 2 and 3, we get him ready for 10th. Right. And we bring him back to the narrow pathway of how we are as a generation.
But do we have an option? We have to get them ready for grade 10.
So
Like everyone said, we have
my
to.
deal, my deal is 25%. My genuine deal is what is expected out of the board is you get a certain marks. But a child who understands the concepts deeply, he will get 100 marks. There is no confusion in this. And tomorrow, if he does not get 100 marks, he's prepared to create new careers. But if a child only thinks laterally to that, imagine he doesn't make it to engineering college, how frustrated he is and what a misfit he is. So my deal is we have to follow the path, but can we make time? And so that what you're saying, all of you as leaders know it deeply. You wish it, right? You don't have time. Then we do a paced up job. Let's give 10 marks for projects. Let's give 10 marks for assignments. Okay, we did. See, you know how extracurricular are also done, but it's not in the fabric of the curriculum because we're so bogged by the reports we have to make. So my deal is we don't have to do away with traditional. We have to live with traditional, but we can change a curriculum by saying traditional needs to be fulfilled within, first you say 50% of time, eventually that will become your 25% of time. And I am making time. Suppose you decide you have 8 periods, you decide I'm making time 2 periods across all grades. I've just made time. And then whether it is holiday, not holiday, that lean time eat into the holiday also online. They will not protest. If you say there's going to be a class online, they will never join. But if you say that part, that is their time, their thinking time, you get into the holiday, you'll also get more time into your curriculum. It's the pattern of thinking. So the unlearning, I feel all of us have to do first, and we have to make time. And otherwise, if we don't make time, it practically tomorrow morning, it won't happen. So that is the whole thought. You said such beautiful points. And then I really almost wish that, can it happen tomorrow morning? How can it happen tomorrow morning? Right? So that should be a purpose of all the discussion. And that's what we aspire in Elevate also. If we come up with an idea and there's an audience sitting, they're also thinking, great idea, wow. But can I take away something and implement it tomorrow? So I would love to say one idea you really felt strongly you have implemented and how you have implemented, because I love to take that back to my school. I'm sure you have done it. If that's such a deep thought in you and you don't even realize you might have done it in your school.
Would you like me to go first?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I've noticed that us stand up, Mr. Cabra. Do you want to say something? You could go ahead and say that. I jumped.
Yeah. Then you can come in. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Sani. I think you already had a thought, so go ahead. I'll speak after you.
All right. So you were talking about involving my school or, doing things a little differently. So what we did was we felt that after COVID, the kids, there was a lot of chaos and there was a lot of hyperactivity. There was a lot of attention deficit in the children, and they required a lot of stillness in their life. So last year, we made one of our rooms into a meditation room. And we converted that into a reflective thinking center. The idea was that NAP was talking about developing critical thinking into the students. And that was not possible via just simple assessments, formative or summative assessments. So what we needed to do was we needed to have out of the box thinking, and we needed to make space in our curriculum where children could be allowed to think differently and also reflect on their life paths in a very different way. So we had a metacognitive notebook assigned to every child, which was filled with certain activities which were mostly reflective in nature. And we converted our school into a thematic school where every month we gave them a theme. And these were all themes which were intangible in the sense they were abstract. Like, for example, if I take a theme of respect, how do I make respect a tangible thing for the child? As respect, you normally say that, okay, fine, you wish everyone, that is courtesy, right? You obey everyone, that is a lack of free will, you know? So we allowed children to debate all these questions. So I came up with, you know, a sixth grader coming and asking me, if someone doesn't respect me, am I supposed to respect them back? You know, so things like that. So we allowed them to have that space where they could assess gender, assess prejudice, assess bias, assess respect, responsibility, integrity in a space which was non-judgmental, which was completely free from any sort of structure. So we didn't have to tell them, we didn't have to teach them. It was a learning space in the true sense. And children came up with things which connected them with the curriculum as well. So the learning happened not via the standard classroom and standard methods, but it was integrated via this path into the other subjects as well. So if you talk about discrimination, bias, and prejudice, you could bring your social studies lessons into it. You could also bring concepts of science into it. And you could also then just slightly deviate the path and go into philosophy and spirituality as well. So it was a wonderful experience because children came up with such beautiful way to talk about things and then also to explore the interdependence of all these concepts in a very healthy environment. So I felt that this way in which we could develop a little bit of agency in the child to work through the entire process of learning with a little more self-assuredness and with a little more control over how they were going about their learning path.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's
fantastic. Such a beautiful idea. And I like the point that the stillness,
Yeah.
you know, you can actually learn better if your mind is not in turmoil, if they are at peace. A lot of times the most rigor comes in your adolescent time, and when everything is clamoring for you and nobody is listening to you. And if you get a little space when you're heard, then the stillness come for you to learn deeper and really put in that extra work. So it's a beautiful idea, also very nice. Yes, Mr. Kabra.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back, I think, to point that both of you already made and give an example of how we are actually implementing it. Dr. Sani already talked about the fact that there is very little agency that students have in doing what they can. Ms. Jamal has already spoken about the fact that we need to reduce the content part of it to like 25%. So I think within the IB framework, I think it is relatively easier to do so, first of all, simply because the IB is a framework and not a content curriculum, especially from till grade 10. 11th and 12th, yes, there is prescribed content, but till grade 10, schools can pretty much choose what and when they want to do. Of course, you would have to meet learning objectives, learning outcomes as they've given. But within that, if we so there is a lot of scope for inquiry, for critical thinking, for all the or for developing all the 21st century skills that we've spoken about. So all till some years back, we were still doing it a little more like subject-based. One experiment that I think Manya referred to earlier was something we started 5 years back called the Maverick Learning Center. We thought that, okay, project-based learning is something which is really exciting. It gives that agencies to students. So if we were to allow students to choose their own projects and not tie them down to subjects or a specific timetable, and so we started this center with about 50, 60 kids 5 years back. And what they don't have is a fixed timetable for anything except maths and English. Those are the only two things that there is a fixed timetable for. Everything else is learned through projects, and the projects are of two forms. They are either a facilitator-led project or it's a student-led project. The student has to propose a project which could be a combination of, say, design and humanities, or science and technology. I mean, it could be any of those things. If that project is approved, then they do it on their own. Otherwise, they join one of the facilitator-led projects. In this process, they learn pretty much everything that they really need to learn in life, which is 21st century skills and attitudes, which will really last them. And the content which is necessary is covered here and there. And we've seen these students giving the 10th standard exams over the last 3 years, and they've been doing as well as the rest of our students, and in many cases much better as well, because their conceptual understanding is much better. They are able to learn on their own significantly better, and which is probably what Ms. Jamal was talking about, saying that, I mean, finally, yes, and then I think Mr. Raman also spoke about that. The results do matter. So there is, I mean, we are in a part of the world where we don't have enough good quality colleges, so the results do matter significantly. So we have to ensure that. We've also this year we've also been working with the CBSE school to help change their curriculum into a PBL format, and we decided as a strategy not to touch grade 9 to 12 because that's a little tricky. We said we'll focus from early years to grade 8, and that's where, I mean, whether it's CBSE or any of the state board, they don't really tell us how or what you need to teach. So it's completely up to us as a school or as educators to figure out the curriculum. So we are doing a lot more conceptual, moving towards project-based learning. I don't think we've got there, given that a lot of relearning and unlearning has to be done. But I believe, having looked at those curriculum plans very closely, I think most of the necessary content that needs to be covered, even within that CBSE grade NCERT textbook reference, is very much possible through 5-6 meaningful projects, I mean, through the year for each subject. So that's my take on how we can personalize learning and bring in that student agency into the classroom, even within the constraints that we have. As Ms. Jambal said, we can't do away with the traditional system altogether, but we have to work within that and do the best that we can.
That's true. That's true. Yes, sir. Absolutely. As Manisha ma'am said, students have no choice. And then Poonam ma'am mentioned we have to make them reach to the highest of their potential. And when all of this comes, academic performance comes into the picture, right? Anita ma'am being a principal of such a prestigious school, have you noticed any measurable improvement in the students' academic performance? Like after adopting the student-centric approach, or do you see it happening any further?
I think what I would like to state first is, yes, this discussion was so meaningful. There's one particular point that I'd also like to bring about is, in terms of higher education. You see, we're doing everything within our system, within the school system. But if you look at it where you have to, I mean, your children have to move towards higher education, it's the same. So I think there requires a lot of change first at that level, because then only it's going to cascade down into what is, how do we prepare our children? We are working on integration of knowledge, of skills. We talk about attitudes. We're trying to bring it in all. But at the end of it, like how, Raman sir also mentioned, at the end of it, you're writing a competitive exam, which is, again, it's like, it's universal. It's the same for everyone. I mean, it's such a sad state. There's so much work that we do in terms of inclusion. But then, again, a child who has a learning difficulty has got to write the very same competitive paper if he's got to get into any of the prestigious universities that you would want. There is a lot of change that we actually require first to be done even at the higher education level, because school, it's very easy. Like Vardhan sir mentioned, we've done the same thing, that it's from KG to grade 8. That is where we bring in all the difference. We have many projects, we have interdisciplinary activities where our teachers sit down, work on the same theme, and children don't know whether they're doing math or English or, science. So that's the way we've sort of curated our entire curriculum, because we have the freedom to do it. But beyond that, when it comes to 9, 10, 11, and 12, just like Dr. Sahani ma'am said, it's the same. Our orientation is to prepare the child to write the board exam, to face that particular board exam confidently. And so there becomes the thrill actually automatically converts into the drill, So this is, I thought I must bring this across because this is where we're actually stuck as educators.
Anita, you have adopted technology across. So you almost take technology for granted.
Yes.
I have to say that, because a lot of people do it very piecemeal, so they do not even know the impact it will have. In your school, you have made time, you have changed curriculum, because you have actually, you are living example of personalized learning to a level that can become a example across the country also. You have to see, because it respects the rigor required by the boards while it makes time for other things.
Absolutely.
And because you live it, you may not know it as much as people who see it from outside and see the difference. I think you guys have cracked the code. You're just improving on the other part of it. Second part that I want to say is, I would take a simile of a warrior. Okay. So there is a warrior, comes from a warrior family, being trained for war. Okay. All the students are trained for war. And they're different. Somebody is a teacher, somebody is, like, you take a simile of a pandit or a trader, take the traditional view. Now, when they train the king, they teach him everything. They teach him commerce, they teach him like etiquette, they teach him governance, everything, but he has to be proficient as a warrior, right? So I'm taking academic proficiency as a warrior trait, that you cannot take that away. That's his main job, right? But you create a character. Whether higher education will not be the nursery where these things can be developed. Whatever his warriorness, he can test in that and sharpen it further. But life, you are the guys who are going to be meaningful. So I feel that this responsibility that has come till class 12 is a good time that all of us are in. When we begin as teachers, and this was an aspiration, that aspirational time has come. Genuinely, we have to learn from each other of how best we leverage resources, if not just technologies, to be able to build the character of the child, to build other life skills of the child, for him to implement that skill of academic proficiency effectively into the world. And then he goes to the best college to sharpen that skill. There, the responsibility is not of, my only thing with higher institutions should be that they actually sharpen the skill. That would be the requirement. The best of the world should be in the higher education, and we should not take higher education as a degree, but of proficiency in whatever subject is chosen.
Because see, ultimately at the end, when you go to even organizations, today they want people who are creative thinkers. But how much creativity is nurtured? You see, we do it at school level. All right, it is something that is then, the child, it is cultivated in such a way where the child starts thinking in that manner. But then when it comes to your higher education, suddenly it just stops. There's a standstill. But yes.
Our higher education is extension of schools, by the way. They're structured also like, you can call it class 13, 14, 15. You know, that freedom is not there, which you're saying. And you are worried that you might create a very free thinking child and he'll be a misfit there. So yes, there has
I
to
think they are talking about out of the box thinking, right? Disruptive thinking. So when we are talking about giving voice, choice, and engagement to our children, we have to understand that we have the paucity of time, a lot of content, examination, as sir has said. So maybe we can go steady, we can go systematic. We should be knowing about the minimum learning outcome, and the planning would certainly going to make this thing possible. The combination of both traditional and the student-centric approach would certainly going to work out in the schools where sir was talking about the state board, and where the parents are certainly not able to understand this kind of approach. So differentiated approach will only be successful when it will going to be slow, it will going to be steady, and it will going to be systematic, and lot of back end work, lot of planning will going to be done by the school and by the teachers. And then only we'll be able to give that ownership to our children, then only we'll be able to give that voice to our children, right?
my question is, why are we so fearful of 9 to 12? I don't understand, because
Yes, same here. We
because
should
to
give them some
me,
space. Why
if
not?
if you give them actual engagement with learning, they will excel. I know so many mavericks in 11th to 12th class who have beaten everybody else.
I completely agree, ma'am.
So,
It's just that 9 to 12 is exactly what we're talking about in terms of paucity of time. You see, we still
Right.
have our projects. We're still doing the interdisciplinary studies. Everything's still there the way it is. But the freedom, as I mentioned, that I have from KG to grade 8, I don't have that in 9 to 12. So it's just sort of
but we can do convergence. Suppose in 9 to 12, you have to actually learn 20 topics. Let's just bring it down to 5 of them can be learned in a certain way, or 20 can be learned in a certain way. Then test them, make them practice. It's a matter of planning only. And imagine a happy child then from 9 to 12. Anyway, he's got so much burden of his hormones in turmoil. So he always angry, always anxious. We settle him down for better learning. I really feel so.
I think that is exactly what all of us are doing as progressive schools. We have those elements in 9 to 12 too. It's only that maybe in 11 and 12, it's even lesser, because there the orientation is entirely towards, preparing for your competitive exams, which has got a very different pattern of assessment. It's not anything just like your board exams. It's not subjective at all. So that's very different. But otherwise, till grade 10, I'm sure all of us who are here, we have all of these elements, right there in terms of equipping our children for what we're talking about in terms of holistic development.
One question I have: how are we interpreting personalized learning? I think your maximum personalized learning can also be interpreted from personal attention to learning, and the kind of attention 9 to 12 children get is way higher than junior children get. It's very personalized, and all adults around them give them 100% attention.
Yeah.
So I think our interpretation should, somewhere when we say personalized, we start saying thrill. I really feel personalized is also drill. Personalized is also taking tests regularly, seeing, okay, not that how much marks I've got, what is the gap I don't know? Can I go back and learn the gap? Can I take adult help to learn that gap? That's personalized. So we also need to interpret personalized differently. You may not want a project there, but he is the project after that.
I was just going to tell you, Poonam ma'am, this is where we've taken the help of Extramarks, because we've integrated into our LMS. And we understand that sometimes there is this problem in school that we can't give that kind of attention to a child when we know that child needs reinforcement of a particular concept. So we work it out with the parent. We say, this is the content that's available. we want your child to go through this, then you come back and we do a diagnostic test, and it really works wonders.
So that's how you make time for him. No, you push him for self-learning. In school, we spoon feed so much. We do not develop self-learners. When they go to Indian higher education, they still fit in. Moment they go to international higher education, the first year, all our children are floundering because their thinking is not independent learners thinking. So if we prep 9 to 12 children to get independent with their learning, can they come back to learn the strategy of a test? So we have to differentiate strategy for test from learning pattern. So that's very important.
Agreed.
So
Yes.
I would love to hear Raman sir's.
I'll just tell you something like a metric. Usually teachers will, comment like, for example, one day you teach something about a bull and you have the test. The next day the children understand, okay, what's a bull? It's a male cow. And next day you take a topic about a cow, say it gives milk and everything. And the next, the next day you give the test, they do it. The third day you give a test and ask, what is a calf? The guy will tell you it's out of syllabus. See, that is the... See, you know what the worst part is? Parents also will come and tell you it's out of syllabus. How can you ask something that you never taught? So there is the concept of logical reasoning is, is totally missing out. So we'll have to give that in a certain way. Apart from jokes, but see, this is the real time. And I'll tell you something very scary when you people are talking about 10th, 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. They cut off from all the sporting activities. I've seen good, state level players being told by the parents, don't go. Like when it'll be swimming or basketball, they'll be wonderfully well. So I have to explain to parents, no, there is a lot of sports quota. Universities give you admissions. For example, you do the NCC, you get this A certificate, C certificate, you can get into admissions into universities easily. And a small thing like a guy's in a band, and know how to play the bugle. And there's a small advantage when you do your NDA, National Defense Academy exam, and for the band, they give some additional value. When I tell the parents that these are productive outputs, then okay, fine, we do it. So they just look at the ends. If it is productive, we'll do it. Shiva, there's not a problem. And some strange things happen. See, 12th standard, you won't believe it. One of them, still remember one of the captains, the parent called me once and said, my daughter's very happy. So I took it as a compliment, but actually her tone was different. She said, no, I'm saying that she's too happy. How can, the exams are coming around Kolkata and she's singing and, very relaxed mode. How can that be happen? And you're not, strict enough. So what do you say? So it's like, we have to,
honestly speaking, I think everybody who's sitting here, parents deal with only their set of children, and they put what they learned in their life to them.
Yeah.
You have a great responsibility of being a change maker, and which all of you are doing so beautifully. I'm really telling you, I've seen such a huge transition in the teaching fraternity, because the leadership that has come now in the last 10 years in the schools is really very open-minded and very persuasive where parents are concerned. And I think online, this social media and all is also bringing out conversations. So those discussions were not happening previously. The percentage like this, the way you gave example, increasingly is reducing. Because now they also know the world that their children are going into is not the same world they come from. We never challenged perhaps our parents, but our children today challenge us because there is a voice. And I think there is a work of the schools that is coming through. So all of you are on a good path. And I think this is a good time for educational institutions and education per se. And I think COVID and everybody overnight becoming problem solvers just told them the power of being a power. We experience what is it to be a problem solver, right? So now we don't use it as a word. When we talk to our children, we use it as an experience. So personalized learning is a reality. It is already there in 9 to 12. We have to percolate it to the bottom. And then whatever change we are talking about will take 5 years, but it will happen. But our friend actually is technology to be taken with some clarity. Not just that I'm on Facebook or I can do some little presentation on it, but as an institution, that how do you make time without losing the rigor?
Poonam ma'am, I think we need to, make the parents aware about a lot of things, right? They are the very important identity, and we need to tell them what are the changes coming in the education system, be it education policy, be it NCA, foundation stage. And I think that should start from the very initial stage. So that, when their children would going to come to the higher classes, they'll be well aware that this is the design of the school and this is how the school goes with the education or with the concept, and slowly steadily this would certainly going to meet the expectation of the parents as well, isn't it?
No, well, such a beautiful point. In fact, I think NEP is the first policy paper which is
Right.
so discussed.
Yes.
And then, and perhaps because it was post-COVID, everybody was used to online conversations, that we had so many conversations on it. And everybody is learning from each other. But you are right, we are missing the parents.
Yes.
So, Raman sir, how do you think we can bring in parents into this conversation?
No, ma'am, the most important challenge is always parents. That's what, because we are, as I told you, we are an exam-centric system. So, because our system is like based on marks, and in our school, we deal with lower income family situations and, a lot of other personal problems from families. So it is basically the parents are the important stakeholders. Even when you want to implement something new, we really need to convince them over things. And if there are productive outputs, and if there's going to see some real, in terms of, see, today parents are kind of, they don't have that concept of delayed gratification. They want immediate gratification.
Yeah.
What do I get out of it? And societal aspirations are, hitting the roof. I know children are doing NEET for the third or fourth time, IIT for the fifth time, and you won't believe it. And children are starting in engineering colleges and going for coaching class for NEET. So believing that I'll crack someday and go. So being in the career counseling space, there's so much of confusion, Chittana. So they got between society and their aspirations and all that. So I feel that, yeah, the important stakeholders are the parents and definitely the policymakers, the government also, and of course teachers also. Some parents do listen. Yes, they do listen, they do understand. And see, personalized learning, for example, homeschooling concept in Tamil Nadu and Chennai is picking up, but it's not doing that good, but some are getting it right. Some are getting it right, and I see some of the universities are welcoming that concept. So we are kind of, yeah, it is good, provided, as you said, if you mix the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, the reformers, the government all come together and they're able to, give some kind of proper structured and keep the children's happiness index in the center and do a curriculum framework around that. And as one of sir said, like if it is an inquiry based, because I want to remove the word define or direct answers. What's the point of learning and memorizing and doing it? So instead of doing a research based questions would be much better. And children are smart. I've seen from very good small backgrounds, children are super smart.
Yeah,
they just don't know how to present it. You come to limelight. So yes, I think if the stakeholders, the parents and all that come together, and I think because see, they already, for us, the goal is set. We need marks to enter this college. So we are working towards that goal. So unless you shift the goalpost and say, look, we are looking at all these parameters and these are the criteria for admission, and you have so much of career options. Today we have about 550 career options. Most
yeah.
parents will know only 10 options. They won't go more beyond that. So, all that societal aspirations and
So, what the question was that we do run sometimes, some schools ask us and we do a career counseling, and in those schools tell us to do it for the parents first before they go and address the children. Because you're right, there are 500 careers, but they have no clue about those careers. But my question was that since NEP has come, teachers have been convinced by the head of the institutions, they've been prepared. Okay. Students are very malleable. They fall into the pattern you take them into, right? Parents are the voice that comes into the school, those conversations like around NCF has not started actively because they feel it is technicality. We feel, oh, they will not understand. But I really liked Priya's point that let's bring them in. And okay, is it possible when you're doing an address, at that time you talk about it, or we have webinars for parents where we talk about it, educating them about this? Manya, something you should look for? Because this
Ma'am,
is
in
a...
our sorry,
Yeah,
in our
please.
school, before the children go and choose their stream, be it science, humanities, or commerce, we orient the parent first about different streams, different career. Though certainly the choices for the students only, they have to make their choice, but parents are equally aware about the career choices or what kind of the path the children would going to take forward. So it's very important. They are the very important stakeholders, and they are supposed to be oriented first, and certainly then the changes which we are talking about. Because at the end of the day, we have to understand that flexible learning plan is something which we are talking about. But are the parents ready for that flexibility? So that is something which we have to focus upon.
I think one good idea would be to have, rather than having parent-teacher meetings, you have student-led conferences. If you have student-led conferences, what happens is that one, you're providing agency to the child and having the child critically analyze their learning path and see where it is going. Also, it becomes the child's responsibility then to talk about how the learning is affecting them personally. And also choose their own career path, because that growth then ultimately talks about, then you can ask those leading questions. Where is this taking you? And where are you going to go on from here? And then when you have that kind of a conversation between a parent, a teacher, and a child, then the exploration becomes even more so, where the parent is then forced to ask certain leading questions to the child. The conversation goes home in a very different way.
It's so interesting. Imagine there's a PTA meeting and you get a dancer to come and say, what is it to excel in my exams?
Correct.
And why I'm referring a dancer to, there was a child, I read his, that paper you write for your international university.
Statement of work.
And he was trained to be a dancer for 9 years. And he wrote that everything, and he scored 94% marks in his class 12. So he had written that everything I learned about learning is from the dance.
Yes.
Because dance gave me freedom of what I enjoyed. It gave me structure. It gave me rigor. And I translated that to all my learning.
Correct.
And then imagine if that paper was read in your PTA meeting, the respect for dance will come. It would not be an annual day program, right? It is also a discipline.
Also,
right?
you're forming a sense of identity for the child.
Yeah,
The child is talking about their own self. And you are primarily, what is student-centric? Here is what is student-centric. You are giving them that leeway, that space that, okay, here, talk about yourself and tell us.
So,
how can we help you?
Yeah, how can we help you? Or any like mix of children. They could be academically a guy who's really good in mathematics and really bad in language. He would come and talk about his struggle and what help he got from the school, or he would want help. But this is an experiment I think is worth taking. And imagine a child talking about NEP and coming in saying what works in NEP and telling parents this is what works. So interesting idea. Very good. Very good.
So true. I mean, taking practical suggestions from students it's a very nice idea. Looking forward to its implementation, definitely. We've talked about all the stakeholders right now. I think I would like to hear from Vedant sir more on educators. at the end of the day, it's the teacher who is in the classroom and implement all of this, which we have discussed, right? So Vedant sir, how do you maybe ensure that your educators, the teachers, are adequately trained and prepared to implement all of this that we have discussed right now, all of the suggestions that all of the panelists have given?
I think we have to change the narrative with the educators also. It's not that educators are not aware of what needs to be done at a fundamental level. But if we continue to measure them and reward them based on narrow academic success in terms of the maximum marks, then that's what the educators are also going to focus on, because that's what the school stands for, that's what the parents want, and so on and so forth. So the what we expect from educators has to be defined far more holistically. So all the things that we've spoken about, how can we may not have objective measures for, say, agency or inquiry or the success of a project, but even if we can build subjective measures and make sure that teachers are evaluated, measured, and also appreciated on those measures. That's when, and of course, training has to happen. I mean, for all of these things, professional development has to happen. It has to be an ongoing process. It can't happen as Poonam ma'am said, it has to be a 5-year process. So all of those things together have to be done for the educators to be on the same page as the rest of us have been talking about. I mean, those changes otherwise will not be seen in the classroom consistently.
Right, right. So we're at the end of this conversation. I would really like to hear from each one of you one line of advice for all the schools, all the teachers, all the educators to adopt personalized learning, and how these advice and strategies would you offer to help them successful scaling and implement these practices in real time. I would like to start from Anita, ma'am.
Very simple. I'd keep it in 3 words: get into the momentum of things. I think it's about being aware and conscious. It's very easy to follow. So today we don't want followers, we want thinkers, we want doers. So it's very, very important for us to understand, gauge what the situation is like, gauge what our outcomes should be, understand it, and work towards it. If you talk about teaching in general or the educational ecosystem in general, we were all wired to think from the objective to the outcome. I think it's high time now we understand that it has to work backwards. You have to first think of your outcome, then work towards your objective, because that becomes your pathway. And that's it.
Yeah. Raman sir, what's your piece of advice?
Yeah. So addressing these challenges requires a holistic approach that involves collaboration among educators, administrators, policymakers, and technology developers. Flexibility and ongoing evaluation and commitment to addressing equity issues are crucial for these kind of success implementation. And any product, if ma'am says, like for example, we have just started off doing, in fact, for NEET and IIT with Extramarks, because we were looking at factors like whether it's feasible, whether it's flexible, whether it's affordable. Now, certain parameters where we feel that, okay, it's going to suit our students, then we go into that. So any solution in the education space that's going to, be flexible, adaptable, and affordable, reachable, I think will work out. Yes.
Manisha, ma'am.
I would like to talk about the relevant content here. When you talk about personalized learning and you talk about giving the child a student-centric approach to learning, you also then have to realize that a lot of the context derived for that learning comes from the relevant content. For every child, it will be different. And what technology does for us is that when you are, supposing you have an inclination towards a specific set of content, then you will go back and read that again and again. So what technology is a way of telling us through a very from the opposite direction that this child is highlighting this particular content more, which means the inclination is towards that. So even sometimes without realizing it, technology is going to help us to charter a path for the learning of that particular child. So my advice would be that use that tool that you have to the maximum advantage and create a path for that child. So for all of the educators and as well as the parents, I think we just need to learn how to use whatever is available to us in a better way. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We already have a lot. It's just a little of an approach needs to change. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you, ma'am. Priya, ma'am.
I think ma'am has said it right that as the educators we need to understand that it's not only our duty, we have to add desire into that we are making the change makers, global citizens. And when we'll be desirous, there will be a delight. So we have to understand the duty, desire, and delight, these three things would going to bring this change forward. And let's start asking from the children. Do not ask them what's your major, ask them what's their mission. Give them the mission for life, and that is how we're going to make this approach forward and would certainly going to bring the desirous changes in the society. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Vardhan, sir.
Yeah, I think I would just like to add on the piece of parents and because they are very important stakeholders in the whole process. And we discussed a little bit about that. And I think uh, what is necessary is that when we speak to them, we need to have the conviction that when we talk about progressive education, it is genuinely going to help the kids in the long run. Yes, grades and marks are important to get admission into a good college, but in real, what is going to really help are those skills and attitudes that we've spoken about. So if we have that strong conviction, both as an educator, but also as someone who's worrying about, okay, what will parents think, and if they back out, what happens? If we lose our numbers, what happens? I think that is also something we need to convince the school management of, that if we are on this track, parents will also find this beneficial. The only thing is there is a time delay because the results of that will show 6 years, 10 years down the line.
So true. Poonam, ma'am, your piece of advice.
First is to be brave. That is most important. We have to put a fear on the side. I think there is a huge clarity that is there amongst most of the education heads today, that where they are headed and what more they need to go with the children, because I think very naturally post-COVID, a sense of nurturance has come into the schools, which was very marks oriented. Now every head of the institution is also worrying about the child differently, about mental health and all those kind of things. So creating a good environment is there, but just be brave about it. And I need to tell you, the personalized learning has already begun. You just have to catch up. The child is already self-learning. If you are not allowing him self-learning in those 8 hours in school, he's going home and self-learning of what he wants to learn, where about his curriculum and everything. He's doing it already. I think as adults, we should put the fear aside and catch up with him. Otherwise, he'll find a path without our guidance. And he needs our wisdom to use that knowledge. So be brave and fearless. That's all.
That's true. Thank you so much, ma'am. So thanks to all the panelists. Today's episode explored the evolution of education towards a student-centric classroom. All of our panelists, all the distinguished panelists had insights into the personalized learning, assessment strategies, the role of technology, and overcoming the challenges and the implementation methods. Education as a powerful tool for change continues to shape the world. So I would say stay inspired and curious as we all work towards a brighter and more innovative future for education. Thank you to all the panelists and the audience for their active participation. Until next time, strive for excellence and keep the spirit of learning alive. Thank you, panelists. I would request a moment of a group picture from all the panelists with a big smile on their face. Host, please click a selfie. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Let's make this episode of Extramarks Elevate. Let us elevate the education and let it be a catalyst for the positive change in education. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.